In this video, we will look at cancer, one of the most troublesome afflictions of the century. Before we begin, I want to ask you a question. Do you think a cure for cancer might have already been found and is being hidden from us? While you write your answers in the comments, let me start explaining the research that has been done. There is some very interesting data in surveys conducted in America, Europe, and the Far East where this question was asked. When we look at the results of the survey I just asked you about, 75% of respondents answered yes to this question. In other words, a large majority of the world thinks that a cure for cancer has been found but is being hidden from us, or remains undecided and stays suspicious. This is a somewhat ironic situation, and let me explain why I say that. Since the first human, we have continuously developed and continue to live in an increasingly better, safer environment. In an environment where science and safety have advanced to this degree, this distrust seems somewhat contradictory. Of course, people who think this way may have valid reasons. As someone who recently lost a relative to cancer, this topic matters a great deal to me. What is the source of this distrust? Could a cure for cancer really have been found? Is it being hidden from us? Let's take an in-depth look at all these questions. If you're ready, we're opening the cancer file. As I began this topic, I actually thought it would make more sense to start from the end. The reason the survey respondents I mentioned above answered, yes, the cure has been found and is being hidden from us, is not science. The reason they give this answer is the distrust felt toward those involved in the business side of this field. Health companies and pharmaceutical companies have quite the rap sheet. People who approach this with suspicion give this answer not because they distrust science, but because they don't trust the companies or the pharmaceutical barons. So I hope that's the case. Let's agree on this much. Our thorn in the side, cancer, has unfortunately become an industry. This industry is so large that we shouldn't think of it only in terms of treatment. Drugs, imaging devices used in hospitals, byproducts, the list goes on and on. This is an industry with an enormous amount of money circulating in it. If we consider only the drugs, this amounts to roughly $250 billion. This is roughly equal to the entire economy of most countries in the world. We're talking about that much money, and this figure is expected to exceed $300 billion within just a few years. So why did I explain all this? We need to understand that cancer treatment is not a one-time treatment. It is spread out over time. Let's take the most widely used cancer drug as an example, Keytruda. This drug is not given to the patient just once. It is typically administered 2 or 3 times a month, and this treatment lasts at least a year, sometimes for years. So how much did the company that produces this drug, the Keytruda company, earn last year? Let me tell you right away, exactly $25 billion. Let's compare this figure with another amount of money to understand its scale. In recent weeks, the world's largest digital bank announced it had earned $2.5 billion annually, and they were thrilled about this revenue, calling it a great success. They apparently hadn't heard about Keytruda's $25 billion. That was one side of the coin. There's also the investment side. About $100 billion are spent annually on cancer research. The strange part is that a very large portion of this enormous sum goes to failed drugs. Because in oncology spending, or in trials, the failure rate is much higher. In a given trial, your probability of failure is roughly 95%. That means 95% of the investment goes to waste. Given this situation, people don't want to invest in a sector with such a low rate of return. Because of this commercial aspect, some people also claim that certain alternative treatments or promising drug ideas can't find funding.
Now that we've covered the financial side, let's look at the scientific side. In exchange for the billions of dollars spent and just as much R&D work, what are we getting? Are we able to make progress? Well, the answer to this question is probably yes, because according to statistics, we have now reduced the cancer-related death rate compared to the past. Between 1990 and 2020 in particular, there has been a decrease of roughly 30%. But according to another piece of data, the number of people who have died from cancer has actually increased over that same period. In that same period, the number of people who died from cancer increased by 75%. Isn't that a contradiction? Is science lying to us? No, we can explain the situation as follows. In 1990, 20 out of every 10,000 people died from cancer, while now that rate is 14 out of every 10,000, meaning we are making progress. There is a detail here. Some researchers believe that this drop in rate shouldn't be attributed solely to drugs or treatments, but rather to increased public awareness. For example, the decline in smoking, or people distancing themselves from carcinogenic factors. And honestly, they may not be entirely wrong. Despite all the spending, it's clear that progress has been slow. Unfortunately, we still have a very long way to go. So another question comes to mind here. Why can't we solve this? Despite all this spending, all this advancement, all this progress in medicine, why isn't it happening? To be able to answer this, we first need to know what exactly we're researching. What is cancer? Let's get to know our problem well. When we say cancer, we're not talking about a single disease. There are more than 200 identified types of cancer so far, and that's just what we know of. Even the same type of cancer in two different people is genetically different from one another. If we take this into account as well, the number of cancers reaches into the thousands. The reason there are so many different types isn't something external, it's within ourselves. Cancer is actually something our own body produces. It is our own cell in a corrupted state. It is a condition we create within ourselves as a result of our cells losing control. In a normal, healthy person, every cell knows what to do. It knows when to divide, when to stop, and when to die. All of this is known and programmed. Millions of cells divide every day, but this doesn't cause chaos because our cells know where they need to stop. Over time, this process accumulates certain errors in our DNA. This is what we call a mutation in science. These mutations sometimes disrupt vitally important systems, for example, like a command that tells cells to keep dividing. From that point on, things start to spiral out of control because the command that tells cells to stop is broken, so the cells keep dividing continuously. The mechanism that kills the cell becomes dysfunctional. What follows is well known. Complete chaos begins inside us. Cells divide and multiply continuously but never decrease. New mutations then begin to rapidly increase as well. This is exactly where our job gets harder, because what we're fighting is no longer a fixed thing. It's a constantly changing, constantly growing phenomenon. Cancer, or by another name, the tumor. Even within a tumor, it is divided into subtypes. Some die quickly, some die slowly, some are more resistant, some are less sensitive. What we're dealing with is now like a living organism, a population with its own world and its own decisions. This is also why drugs are inconsistent in their effects. In some people, even if you eliminate 95% of the diseased cells, the remaining resistant portion brings the disease back, now resistant. The problem we're dealing with is not singular, not fixed. It's a changing, evolving system. So then, are we struggling for nothing? All that money, all that effort, are scientists working late into the night for nothing? Because up to this point, it seems like there's not really a fight to be had. It's almost a one-sided war, as if we've taken on an impossible mission. Is all this money and effort being spent just to make more money? Actually, the issue isn't just about getting better. It's about survival.
Some people begin treatment knowing they will never be the same as before, because even a few extra weeks spent with their loved ones is worth all the world to them. This is exactly why many different methods have been developed in the fight against cancer. Not every treatment is started with the goal of completely eliminating the disease. Treatments started with the goal of completely eliminating the disease are usually for tumors caught in the early stages of the disease. In that case, the tumor can be removed from the patient through surgery, and the patient can continue with their life. But most of the time, cancer is discovered after it has progressed quite far, so it's already too late. In this case, 3 different paths emerge. The first is to stop the disease and prevent it from progressing further, and if possible, to shrink it.
Here, the focus is on rapidly dividing cells. The second path is to extend or prolong the duration of the illness. The goal here is to try to keep the patient alive for as long as possible. The third path is to improve the patient's quality of life going forward. A series of methods are applied to reduce their pain, make breathing easier, and help them continue their life as normally as possible. Alongside these, in recent years, we've discovered another new treatment method, immunotherapy. Remember when we said, while defining cancer, that it's a system that arises and develops from within us? It seems scientists thought about exactly this point and said, since this is a system that forms from within us, and we already have a system within us designed to fight off negative conditions that arise inside us, they found a treatment method that trains the immune system to recognize cancer and enables it to fight the disease. And it really does work quite well in some patients. Unfortunately, not in everyone, because everyone's cancer is different. So does that mean everything we said at the beginning becomes meaningless? In other words, aren't pharmaceutical companies lying to us just to hold on to this massive industry? We simply can't find a cure for cancer? Yes, unfortunately, we can't find one. We have hope, we have resources, but cancer is faster than us. And rest assured, if those giant pharmaceutical companies had truly found a complete cure, they wouldn't resort to such complicated methods. Just think about what people would be willing to sacrifice to access that drug. Those pharmaceutical companies would earn many times more than they currently do. So then, what about all the alternative treatments, herbal remedies, and various therapies we hear about all around us? These are simply the trade of hope carried out by people who play with other people's dreams. If this industry is this big, it's because of how much people are willing to give up for the sake of their lives and the fight they wage to avoid losing hope. Every cancer has been cured headline out there is, at least for now, playing with someone's dreams somewhere. Maybe one day that headline really will turn out to be true, and a smile that never fades will settle onto the faces of those who suffer from this disease. Because, as I said before, this affliction shows a different face in every single person, and even in those who recover, it becomes very difficult to understand why or how they got better. I'm aware that I've been speaking quite pessimistically up to this point. So, what are we going to do? Is there really no way out? Can humanity ever find a cure for this affliction one day? Let's focus a bit on these questions now and look at the glass half full. I think we now understand that a cure won't come from a single drug. To defeat part of this affliction one day, and eventually all of it, we need to stop treating it like a normal illness. Just as everyone is given the same medication when they have the flu, this treatment method doesn't work for cancer, so we're left with only one option: personalized treatment. Since every type of cancer can present differently in different people, even in the same location, we need to stop trying the same drugs on different people. The first studies for this have already begun. A cancer vaccine. But don't think of it like the vaccines we're familiar with. In the vaccine model that BioNTech is working on, instead of using a weakened virus injected into the body like in normal vaccines, the mutation is selected from the cancer cell and the tumor's mRNA is taken and used to produce a vaccine. The vaccine essentially tells the body, look, this is the protein that's giving you cancer. So again, the goal is to train our immune system. But there's a detail here. This vaccine doesn't work on its own, at least not for now. This is a method aimed at preventing the cells that remain after tumor removal surgery from causing cancer again. As these kinds of approaches increase, we will defeat this disease one day. In fact, we're on the verge of eliminating some types of cancer. For example, we've learned that cervical cancer is usually caused by HPV, and as HPV vaccines become more widespread, we will defeat this cancer. Or, as another example, liver cancer. We also know its cause, hepatitis C. And as hepatitis C decreases, we can defeat this cancer as well. But we should be aware that this isn't a full solution either. We're still very far behind. So what's the real solution? We are now in the age of artificial intelligence, and we use it in every moment of our lives. We've integrated it into the field of health as well, and will continue to do so. One of the biggest steps toward defeating cancer is precision treatment methods created by combining genetic mapping with artificial intelligence. We need to produce our genomic profiles, understand which gene is broken in our body, which protein has a problem, and then produce drugs that are almost like guided missiles, precisely targeted at that spot. In this way, we're also producing personalized medicine. We believe that the same type of cancer, which manifests differently in every person, can be eliminated this way through personalized drugs. Of course, this is just a theory for now. We still have a long way to go, and we need to keep advancing both in the field of artificial intelligence and in medical science. We said this is a theory, but there is another path as well: preventing cancer before it ever forms. This disease doesn't enter our lives all at once. There is an incubation period beforehand. If we can catch it during this incubation period, we can prevent it before it forms. New technologies are also focusing on this area, aiming to catch the traces cancer leaves in the blood during this preparatory period, stopping it before it becomes visible to the naked eye. Our new focus is on early detection prevention efforts rather than late diagnosis treatment. That's it. In an industry where this much money circulates and which is far from perfect, it's only natural for people to wonder, are they hiding it from us? But as we've also seen in this video, no matter how much trust breaking we experience, there is one truth here. What we're fighting is a more complex, more difficult problem than we thought. We're not dealing with a single disease here. Every person has a condition that forms differently, one that's unique to them. In a situation like this, searching for a single solution doesn't sound very logical either. But at least now we understand what we're up against. We're developing newer treatment methods, and soon we'll be able to detect cancer even earlier. We've also come to the point of eliminating certain types of cancer entirely. We now see cancer not as something waiting for a miracle drug, but as a knot that will be untangled step by step. And even this in itself is a huge step forward for us. I hope that one day we'll be able to make a video on this channel titled "We Defeated Cancer." See you in the next video.